Each and every one of us will die. The question is when and how do we prepare for it? In terms of thinking about planning, it's not just about death and dying, it's also about how do we want to live the last year of our life. And that's really thinking about what's important to us and how do we want to be remembered. Advanced care planning is basically the term that's used to plan for a time when you're not able to make your own medical decisions. It's a process that everyone 18 and older should think about. We want to be able to say what's important to us and who do we trust to make decisions if we no longer are able to make our own medical decisions. Advanced directives are documents that basically are legal documents that say, this is who I trust to make my decisions if I'm no longer able to make it. In New York State, it's called a healthcare proxy. In other states, there are different names. There's a second document in New York State called a living will, and that document says, if I lose the ability to make decisions and I have a terminal or irreversible condition, these are the things I want and don't want. Medical orders for life-sustaining treatment, or MOLST, is a medical order form that's bright pink colored that is signed by the physician. MOLST is basically for people who are seriously ill at the end of life. There are three major groups of people for whom MOLST is appropriate. First, it's for people in nursing homes or for those in the community who are getting long-term care services that might be eligible for a nursing home. The second group is for people who have distinct preferences about what they want and don't want, and they're aging towards the end of their life and they have advanced age. They may or may not be frail. Third is for anyone at any age where it wouldn't surprise the physician that they might die in the next year. MOLST is a set of medical orders and it defines your preferences. You're able to choose an overall set of treatment guidelines. Everyone gets comfort measures, no matter what you choose. You may want all life-sustaining treatment, or you may want to limit some. So if we're thinking about your preferences for what happens when your heart stops and you stop breathing, and you want to consider whether you want cardiopulmonary resuscitation or not, keep in mind that that's a plan for the last 15 minutes of your life. It's when you're dead. Do you want an attempt to be brought back? But when we think about a plan for the last year of your life, we want to think about other life-sustaining treatment, and it's important that you understand each of these. The choices include, what would you want if you had trouble breathing in terms of being placed on a ventilator with a tube down the back of your throat? What would you want in terms of feeding tubes, in terms of fluids given artificially? What would you want in terms of antibiotics? And so these are decisions that you can make. There are other individual decisions, like a person who is either on dialysis or is having kidney problems. Would you want to go on dialysis or be treated conservatively? If you were a Jehovah's Witness, what are your preferences about blood products? If you have a defibrillator that's implanted, when is it time to turn it off? Those are other instructions that are very specific for very individual persons. Once you make a decision on the MOLST, it's not set in stone, and it needs to be reviewed and updated according to public health law. But in addition, anytime your health status changes or there's a change in what's important to you, anytime you have a care transition, it's also important to know that as part of that review process, that individuals can change their mind. People can get worse, people can have an improvement in their health status. The whole goal of the MOLST is to make sure that if there's an emergency and EMS is called to your home, that they know what you want and don't want. And those medical orders need to be followed by all health professionals. It's also important that these orders are carried with the person from place to place. So if you're going to a relative's home, if you're shopping, if you're going to a doctor's appointment, if you're going to dinner, it's important to take those medical orders with you. In terms of the most, what's important to recognize is that families need to be part of this discussion. So many people think there's so much time, I can do this another time, or I don't want to talk about it because it's really hard to talk about death and dying. Talking about it doesn't make it happen. Not talking about it can put a burden on your loved ones, because if you lose the ability to make a decision, then they have to guess what you might want, and they don't know if they're making the right decision. I'm often asked, how do we get the conversation started, and when do we do it, and how do we get people to start talking about death and dying? Well, frankly, it's about living. And a good time to do it is when families gather. And if you don't have something that's coming up, then bring family together. Start with a story. Everyone has a story. And sometimes it's with a family member. Sometimes it's too personal, and you can talk about a story from a movie, from a book. There are videos that are out there that can trigger the conversation. You can watch a video and then talk about why you should do it now. Each and every one of us can and should plan for the end of life. We should talk to our family, we should talk to our doctors. It's a gift. It's a gift to ourselves to keep us in charge if we lose the ability to make decisions. It's a gift to our family to take away the burden and to give them peace of mind. And to make sure that your preferences for care and treatment at the end of life are honored.